Welcome to Promote, Profit, Publish. I'm your host, Juliette Clark, and we have an interesting conversation that's going to take place today, a little bit different from what we normally do, but something very relevant to something that happened a couple months ago by the time this airs. So I want to remind you to go over and follow us on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Super Brand Publishing. If you're somebody who likes video instead of just the podcasting, you can see all the video over there. You can see that Hannah today is wearing a beautiful red sweater. She's all dressed up for the holidays. Also, don't forget to go over and take our Promote, Profit, Publish quiz. You can find that at www.promoteprofitpublishquiz.com. Find out if you're really ready to publish. Do you have all the pieces in place? Have you planned? Do you have a strategy? None of this can be done just right off the cuff. You have to have plans for budgets and a strategy. So today's guest is Hannah Hassel-Kelcher, and she helps executives, managers, and entrepreneurs build healthier business cultures that contribute to happier employees, improved employee retention, and a more robust bottom line. She's a published author and a recognized expert in the field of business strategy, who delights in helping clients conquer business issues hiding in plain view that matter to their bottom line through her consulting work at Business MO LLC and her podcast, Business Confidential Now. Unlike other business consultants, Hannah brings a unique perspective to the table due to her decades of experience bridging the gap between business and law as a trusted advisor to influential decision makers ranging from startups to the S&P 500, Big Tobacco, and the White House. So welcome. We're excited to have you, Hannah.
Well, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
This will be fun. All right, you guys, pick it up from here. So I invited Hannah to the show today because we happen to be talking on the day that the Jon Gruden story broke. And I think it's really important for everybody to understand what's going on in their business and I don't know what you call them, like smoking guns can impact your career. So Hannah, tell us a little bit about that backstory and, what your advice would have been.
Well, I like to give proactive advice and tell employees and their employers that the best thing to do is to remember that everything you write as an employee is a business document. It reflects not only on you personally, but on the employer. Which is why I can understand, some people that were writing about that Jon Gruden story at the time were saying, well, it was off-brand for the Raiders. Like, yeah, it was off-brand, but there's a disconnect between the value of an employee who expresses themselves that way and the franchise that they're working for. So, these emails came to light after about, 10-month investigation, into the NFL. And it's really sad. My question would be to him, like, why did you have to write that? What were you thinking? How is that helping anyone? What purpose was it for? So he paid a heavy price. And I think employees need to remember that. I mean, if you're a solopreneur, it's me, myself, and I, it's easier in a way. But the downside that you have to keep remembering is you're communicating with people, whether you're an author in publishing. And, so you always have to keep in mind, how is your correspondence being perceived? Now, that's not to say everybody has to be a perfect angel. We all get frustrated and angry about things and we want to vent. The question is, how do you do it? And which communication medium is really best suited for that? And I would say email is not, because it has legs and it has a lot of longevity. People keep it, people print it, it gets forwarded, it gets into the wrong hands, it goes beyond your intended audience sometimes. So when you want to vent, when you want to say something that's really not very nice, ask yourself, how is this helping? And who is it helping? Your ego? Because I already told him. Or, you're looking to commiserate with someone that you think has the same sentiment, the same feeling. But there's a better way to do that. Over a beer, over a cup of coffee, a glass of wine, whatever your favorite libation is, where you can vent with each other and hopefully nobody's overhearing you or recording you on your cell phone.
Right. And things to think about here. I mean, even as a solopreneur, I feel like I have to be careful what I send out. And not that anything I send out is so important, but we've seen a lot lately where old things have surfaced on Twitter, and at the time you wrote it, you might not necessarily be thinking that it's a bad thing, but all of a sudden that person on the other end of you have a row of some sort, and they might be a little bit vindictive. So I think we always have to be really aware of what we're writing in any context.
You're absolutely right, Juliet. I mean, you could try to explain the context away, and some people try to hide behind the First Amendment. Well, I have a right to say, well, yeah, and you also have a right to all the consequences that come with it. So be smart, because the one thing is, you have 100% control at the time you're writing or communicating with somebody as to what you're saying and how you're saying it. And that doesn't mean holding hands, toasting marshmallows, singing kumbaya. People have tough conversations, and that's fine, but there's a way to do it. There's a way to disagree without being disagreeable, and try to keep things in context. I mean, I'll give you an example. Humor does not always travel well. It's just one of those things, one thing that somebody thinks is, oh, that's hysterical, somebody else is highly offended by. So you really need to be professional in your business correspondence, and even your personal correspondence. I mean, so many people, when they're applying for a job, employers will have somebody look at their social media. And if there is something that could be troublesome for the company in terms of, hey, if this is how this person is speaking, they could be doing this on our behalf. And as agents of the organization, that reflects on us. Is that something we want? Is that something we can correct and draw their attention to, that, hey, you can do better, because does not allow you to shine professionally. And some people are open to that kind of feedback and others are not. So, but yeah, it is definitely something that employers look at. So even in your social media, personal social media, be smart. Be smart.
Well, yeah, not only be smart. One of the things I jumped off of Facebook in 2020 was political. Everything was political. And now I look at things like, I think Twitter is just the worst thing that ever happened to this planet. And I look at some of the things where people are so judgmental in attacking other people on Twitter. What comes to mind for me is Alex Baldwin making a very judgmental comment about an accidental shooting. And here he is.
Yeah.
That tweet did not age well, because now
Right.
he's in that person's shoes. But, what are the ramifications of that, where you think you're exercising your First Amendment right, but you're actually being very, I don't want to say offensive. Some people would take it offensive, but more antagonistic. Like, would you want that person to be a part of your culture?
Well, it depends if that is part of your culture. I mean, there are some organizations that in their face is their brand. It may not be yours, may not be mine, but I mean, there could be a fit. But you raise a very a good point about being judgmental. And I think when it comes to business correspondence, the more you can stick to facts and why you draw these conclusions. I mean, it's one thing to say, oh, so-and-so is lazy, like an employment situation. That employee is lazy, they need to be fired. And you put that in an email, and it's like, it's a lot more persuasive and powerful if you were to say, that employee is consistently late meeting deadlines.
Right.
They are consistently late to work. I mean, why did you draw that conclusion? Allow other people to have the same bits of information to see if they draw the same conclusion. I mean, I saw a case, this goes way back, where a doctor wrote in the notes for a patient's records, patient circling the drain. Yeah, well, oh yeah, ha ha, maybe some people think that's funny. And I'm sure that the doctor encounters lots of situations, where somebody is at end of life. But that document came out in the course of a medical malpractice case.
Oh, ouch.
So somebody had some splaining to do. It's like, why set yourself up for those types of things when you don't have to? you don't, it's not necessary. Simply pointing to the factors of why they drew that conclusion allows others to draw that conclusion as well.
Very, very true. So communication is very, very important.
Yeah,
So
sticking to business.
sticking to business. What else do you see in the workplace that has sort of been a detriment? I mean, the Gruden thing was it was enlightening and really enlightening because he wasn't even part of the organization that he got fired from then. So, where do these things lead with things like that? You're pretty versed on the law here.
Well, he did wind up resigning as head coach, so it cost him his job. And there may be others who say, well, wait a minute, there were other people who wrote even worse stuff and that didn't come to light. So there may be some politics behind the scenes that we're not privy to as to why that particular thing happened. But if you're interested in protecting your career, and especially advancing in your career, or even as a solopreneur advancing, just keep in mind that all of these things that you write, how you write them, what you say, reflects on your reputation and how you want to be perceived. So you want to be perceived as a hard ass? Well, then write a certain way. You want to be perceived as taking the high road and someone that protects confidences, that demonstrates respect, that operates with decency, empathy, even if they don't disagree with somebody's position or how they present themselves, then fine. There's another way to do that. And like I said earlier, it's not that maybe deep down inside you don't harbor a resentment or a bias. We all have different types of biases, but does it mean you have to express it or express it in that form where it comes back to bite you? So again, you've got 100% control and you decide how you want to show up.
Yeah, isn't that funny? I believe social media has sort of brought us into the world where we think our opinion matters to everyone else, and we're kind of shocked when it doesn't. I don't know how better to say that, but when you look at all the attacking that goes on some of the social media, and sometimes it's just innocent comments. So where's that point where people start to take responsibility for their own communication, and the other side takes it for theirs as well? Did I phrase that right? I don't even know if I phrased that right, but I truly believe that we all have to kind of separate here and take responsibility for our own communication.
Yeah, you're right. I think we do need to take responsibility, but when people can hide behind an anonymous screen name and a screen, they feel that they've got sort of this level of protection and everybody else is doing it, so why not? And there's this sense of needing to score points and win. And so it takes a level of maturity to disengage and not even respond to some of these things, because it just keeps pouring gas on the fire. And some people say social media has actually hurt our ability to be empathetic.
I totally agree with that. I often have to stop when I used to see those little wars going on. I got off Twitter in 2016 and Facebook in 2020. So you can see it obviously correlated with political things going on in the world where there was just this level of meanness. But what I was going to say with that is you really have to stop and say, would I say that to this person if we were face to face? And I think that's really a big question when you're talking about that behind the anonymous keyboard. And we don't even know, is it people anonymous behind the keyboard or is it bots? Because of course a bot would never have empathy. So we don't know who we're talking to sometimes.
Right. Or what their political affiliation is or what their hidden agenda is. That's very true. So I would like to think that people's time is more valuable than to, engage in these types of spitting contests, because, it's like the schoolyard. It's like bullying. Like, okay, who wins and why does it matter? Right. Why does it matter? Who else is going to see it, especially on something like Twitter, where the feeds are just so quick, unless somebody's seeing it in real time or following it for a particular reason, poof, it's gone. So, how is this helpful?
Yeah.
Why does it matter? How is it helpful? I think those are the questions I keep coming back to when people engage in those types of correspondence. Is it to make themselves feel better? Is it their ego? They have to come out ahead. And again, why does that matter? Does it matter that much to them to be absolutely right? And if whether they're right or not, if the other person doesn't agree, okay, next. You know?
Right. Or even going back to the empathy, I'm thinking last night that I saw something on Twitter, or not on Twitter, on the news about the parade that obviously there were a lot of casualties and a Democratic operative coming out and saying, oh, it's karma, you deserve this. Where did we devolve in our communication where now we tell people who have been victimized, like, you deserve this? I don't know how we devolved to this point. It used to be we were very polite, but I guess that doesn't, I think that served us much better than this just complete nastiness.
I couldn't agree more with you. It's about being respectful.
Yeah.
And, if you respectfully disagree with someone, then fine, explain why. They may or may not agree with your facts or your interpretation of them. Okay, we have an honest disagreement. But when you start to attack people personally and on the level that you described, what good comes of it?
Yeah, exactly. So, Hannah, where can we find you? This has been great. I think we fleshed it out here. And we didn't even have to agree to disagree. We agreed.
Well, I think we both like to see people put their best foot forward so that they can advance and help other people, which is really what it's about. It's doing good, not what can I say to be able to, get a guest appearance on certain crazy websites or media. But yes, I have a podcast. It's called Business Confidential Now. Basically, it's about the stuff they don't teach you in business school. And and there really is a lot. It comes through experience. So I interview a lot of experts, authors, thought leaders, so that they can share their tips about what they learned, what they provide with their clients. And we're talking about big businesses that pay big bucks. So you get it for free. Business Confidential Now is the podcast, available on anywhere that's streaming podcasts and at businessconfidentialradio.com.
Oh, great. Thank you so much for being on today.
Well, thank you for having me. This has been fun, Juliet. Appreciate it.